Boruto and Momoshiki are finally coming together to take down Jura, and while it either means a new major villain is in making or just a wasted build-up to make the most intriguing character more relevant. Well, what if I told you that this showdown between Jura and Borushiki will be one of the final moments of the story before we head over to the flashforward scene? Well, the hints to back this up come from the moon itself, the celestial body which may be the symbol behind Boruto's pure eye, the Jougan. The war against Jura could make the protagonist realize the true meaning of love, and that could be the whole point of this arc due to the number of recurring themes around this element. But before we get to how it all lines up, I have found a mind-blowing analogy about Momoshiki's prophecy, which not only puts our theory in shape but also adds 5 stars to the phenomenal writing behind the story. So every time Momoshiki talked about the Blue Eyes prophecy, there was a sighting of the crescent moon in real life. Not just that, the day when the Omnipotence chapter released, our moon was in the crescent phase even back then. So it's either a huge coincidence or the dots are connecting pretty well. The moon has some strong symbolic connection to the fictional destiny of Boruto, and the reason I feel like the authors have deliberately chosen these dates is because they have literally done this before for another chapter in a pretty down bad manner. Chapter 69 of Boruto Part 1 dropped on 20th April, which equals to 420. And when you look at the events of that chapter, well, it was Mitsuki pointing out Sarada's love for Boruto and Delta going a pervert for Aida due to her irresistible ability. You can't tell me they chose this date for this chapter by coincidence, and same could be for the chapters where Momoshiki revealed his prophecy and finally when it actually happened. Well, the crescent reference might not only correspond to Boruto's moon connection, the real analogy that it shares with the phases of the moon is much more believable. First, we have the new moon phase, which could refer to his birth as he was born with Shibai's will, who may be behind the death of RKV to trigger the most interesting future for Boruto. Next up, there is the waxing crescent, a lunar phase where only a slender silver of light appears after the new moon, steadily growing brighter on its way to the first quarter. Symbolically, it represents intention, growth, and the planting of seeds, which led to the very first shaping of destiny. And as I said earlier, when Momoshiki's prophecy was revealed, it was also the day of the crescent moon. This phase in Boruto's journey has everything to do with the OTSUTSUKI's interference in his life, who was the first major anchor to drive his fate into a horrendous direction. But this was all pre-written, because without Momoshiki, Boruto's life wouldn't have been this hectic and exciting. So let's say his entry was also supposed to be canon in every timeline, which is how he became an integral part of the boy's destiny. Followed by this, we have the first quarter of the moon, when half of the celestial body is illuminated, making it appear as a half circle. This could be a straight up reference to Omnipotence, as Boruto had reached a midway point of do or die. It was a point of no return, where giving up meant giving away the control of his body to Momoshiki. This phase symbolically brings in the concepts of decision making, challenges, and the test of resolve. So we know for a fact that Boruto was able to get over this phase through his hard resilience. So what was next in the destiny that was waiting for him? Well, it's the waxing gibbous, the moon phase which occurs right after the first quarter and before the full moon, where the illuminated portion of the moon is much more than half and keeps on increasing in size. It's linked to refinement, preparation for full illumination, and the completion of mastery. So if we take the full moon as something which is the goal of Boruto, which could be either the Jougan or the simple realization that he will need to keep on living even if all the threats in the world are gone, then the current phase that he's grinding through could be the one which would make him realize just that. Current objective of Boruto is not just Jura, but his internal struggle with himself as well, which has pushed him into believing that if he dies while protecting the world, that's enough. The idea of a sacrifice has hijacked his mind ever since he heard that Jura will kill him in every possible timeline. So instead of dying through assassination, why not die and give everyone a better future at the same time? This could be what was going in his mind when he asked Momoshiki to take control of his body once they are done with the mission, because that's what was originally supposed to happen, and Kawaki would have stopped him with Kama stage 2, as evident in this missing panel. So Boruto could have the same thing in mind this time as well, as he's leaving the fate of the world to Kawaki once he goes berserk. But the flash forward tells a different story, as both Boruto and Kawaki without Momoshiki are fighting each other. So this means something popped in Boruto's mind, which made him change the deal at the last moment, and if that's the case, then we must assume that the intervention of Momoshiki somehow handled the Jura Jura threat. But is it actually possible? Well, before we understand that in depth, let's hypothetically assume Boruto somehow reached a point where he had to give his control to Momoshiki. So what could be that one thing which pulled him away from doing so? Well, the answer could be found in chapter 25 itself, where the only major thing which occurred simultaneously with Boruto's offer to sacrifice his body was the confession of Sarada's feeling for him. Notice how Sarada has been a great anchor in Boruto's journey, be it when he got the iconic scar, saved his life by going rogue, or even now as she has unlocked a massive new power to help him. Sarada truly loves him, and when you connect this to the moon analogy, things tend to make much more sense. We know it's the light of the sun which illuminates the moon in the night sky, and Sarada's Mangekyo is shaped like a sun while the Jougan is based on a moon. So when you think in a symbolic sense, the sun that would awaken the hope to live inside Boruto could be none other than the person who loves him the most, and that is Sarada. In other words, she could be the anchor to save his life, as he would realize it's worth living at least for her, which would change the whole dynamics of his worldview. What's interesting is that without this change of mindset, maybe it wouldn't have been possible for Boruto to take down Kawaki in the flash forward, since he would have died or gotten killed long before Kawaki would have decided to go this far. This is because in the flash forward, Kawaki doesn't want to kill Boruto. Instead, he wants to keep him in the Daikokuten with his parents. So this means he's assured that Momoshiki has been handled, and now we are left with one mystery. How exactly did Boruto get rid of his inner demon? Well, the way Jougan is called the pure eye. What if it purifies the soul of the OTSUTSUKI, making the vessel free from all the devils and demons? The influence of the sun on the moon, the power of love awakening new powers as mentioned by Jura. Both of these scenarios explain how Boruto's Jougan would awaken to stop the control of Momoshiki. Well, let's go to that part in a bit, but first we will explore how likely is it for Momoshiki to defeat Jura. With the feats that I have explained in earlier videos, one thing is clear that Boruto would need to amplify some existing abilities or discover some new one to get rid of him. But how would he do it? Well, I have already explained the amplification of the planetary energy in my previous videos, so let's skip that for today and find a new way for Momoshiki to defeat Jura. In the earlier theories, we were assuming that Boruto won't reveal the deal with the devil to Kashin Koji, just like how he didn't tell him that he has already alerted Kawaki about the limiters. But what if the truth is somewhat different? Why can't it be like Boruto again training under Koji this time, with his Gamma on, to master this OTSUTSUKI power in no time? We already know he was about to learn Flying Rage in 7 years in the future in some timeline, so maybe there are still some futures where he won't face Jura for years, and Kashin Koji could just tap into them to check how strong he can get with the Kama seal. And once they would do all the training in advance in some specific time period, let's say 1 year, it could enhance the powers of Boruto to a whole new degree, and that's when he might become strong enough to destroy Jura with Momoshiki's abilities. Even Kawaki could get some training after the last human Shinju threats are gone, similar to how Cell gave the Z Fighters a time period before the Cell games. Jura might do something similar, giving Boruto some good time to gain a few years of experience of the Kama seal. Well, that would only be possible if we have Koji at Boruto's side when he enters the training arc. If Koji doesn't die, he might even see the Jougan through his prescience and narrate the way of its awakening to Boruto as well. But looking at how some of his futures showed Inogen at his secret base, there's a chance that Koji might not survive. But Momoshiki alone also doesn't seem to be enough to take down the monster. So what if it's a tag team between both the Kama users and Jura, a symbolic end to this struggle, as both of them would be using the power of the OTSUTSUKI to deal with the Ten Tails. But in that scenario, Boruto would need to reveal this plan to Kawaki, who might not trust Momoshiki at all. But since he wants to kill Boruto either way, it would make his task a lot easier, as his counterpart would himself ask him to take him down once they are done. But again, the first scene indicates that Kawaki has lost his bloodthirst, so Momoshiki is no more here, and now we need to find a way to make that happen. The answer could be the Jougan, and for today I would go with the theory of the fusion of them both being the trigger to the awakening of the Sai. Let's put it like this. Boruto, as hinted many times, has the hand of an OTSUTSUKI god on him. Shibai has played the odds in his favor, and their horns look similar too, so maybe he is the reincarnation to him or something like that. The root cause of the Shibai theories was the Borushiki form, which showed us Boruto growing a horn similar to him. So what if the next step to unveiling the Shibai connection is again the OTSUTSUKI transformation of Boruto? Firstly, there's a chance that this time the Borushiki form would have a different design than the last one. So what if once Boruto again activates or awakens the OTSUTSUKI power, something resembling Shibai would glimpse in the vessel, giving us another hint that the OTSUTSUKI form is the key to unlocking his essence. Here is how it could work. Boruto's body already has the hidden OTSUTSUKI power as hinted by Momoshiki in the anime, but till now he didn't have any ways to obtain it, and that's where we get to the point, the karma. It has resonated with the Jougan in the first episode. This means there is something that only the karma can do, which would unlock the pure eye of Boruto. It may be the OTSUTSUKI genetics messing with the already inherited power that is hidden deep within his body, and that might bring out the Jougan, giving Boruto an ultimate OTSUTSUKI power that would keep Momoshiki at bay forever. In other words, the more he uses the karma, the more likely it becomes for him to be able to awaken the pure eye. But is he doing this purposefully? Well, that would be an epic plot twist, but I don't think so. It could go something like this. Koji tells Boruto that he inherits the power which would be equal to that of an OTSUTSUKI god, and in order to unlock it, he needs to use the karma. But using the seal would risk the awakening of Momoshiki, so it's a big no-no. And just when it felt like there is no other way, Boruto comes up with the deal to use the OTSUTSUKI in his favor, and after the karma amps his body enough to awaken the Jougan, he would simply control his karma and the other powers through the eye, making him immune from Momoshiki forever. But let's keep in mind that Koji is not aware of this plan, so if it awakens the Jougan, then it's nothing more than a miracle for Boruto, and we can't credit him for this strategy. It could be that a lot would happen at the same time, like Sarada coming in his way and confessing her love, telling him not to sacrifice himself like this, and that may be the real trigger to the pure eye. Throughout Two Blue Vortex, love has awakened the massive powers of so many characters, so maybe it's going to be the same for Boruto as well. It's just that he will need to betray his temporary OTSUTSUKI ally for the greater good. Now let's give it another angle. What if Boruto has been planning a betrayal plan for Momoshiki all along, meaning he knows he won't give up his body even if they succeed at their mission? Well, that's a theory which I have explained in the video on the right, so make sure to check it out. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new here, and I will see you next time.